What's a thought you've had that terrified you? Sometimes when I'm driving across a bridge, I get this sudden intrusive thought like, what if I just turned the wheel and drove off? I don't want to do it at all. I love my life. But the thought pops in and terrifies me every single time. Apparently it's called the call of the void, and lots of people get these weird impulses. Still freaks me out though, especially since I cross the same bridge twice daily for work. I've started listening to really upbeat music to drown out my thoughts whenever I'm on it. That I might waste my entire life working a job I hate only to retire too old to enjoy anything. Happened when I was sitting in traffic for the third hour one morning, looking at all the miserable faces in other cars. I legit had a panic attack right there on the highway. Quit my job 2 weeks later. Making less money now, but holy crap, I'm so much happier. Still terrifies me though how easily I could have just kept going with that soul-crushing routine for another 30 years. One time I was holding my friend's baby and had the random thought, I could just drop him right now. And it horrified me so much I had to immediately hand him back. I would never hurt a child and love kids, but that intrusive thought made me question my whole character for months. My therapist later told me these thoughts are super common and don't mean anything about who you are. Still, that moment of what the hell is wrong with me was absolutely terrifying. That no one actually likes me and everyone's just pretending. Hit me during my birthday party last year when I looked around a room and suddenly thought, what if they're all just here out of obligation? Couldn't shake it for weeks. Started analyzing every text, every laugh, every invitation. It was exhausting. Eventually, my best friend noticed something was off and we had a long talk. Still creeps back in sometimes though, especially at social gatherings. Brains are weird. Sometimes I think about how I'm just one misstep away from serious injury or death. Like I'll be at the top of stairs and think if I trip right now, that could be it, or using a knife or crossing the street. Just how fragile everything is. Had this thought really bad once while hiking near a cliff edge and literally had to crawl away from the edge on my hands and knees because I was so terrified. My friends still tease me about it, but honestly that moment changed how I think about life. That I might be living in a simulation and I'm the only real consciousness. Happened during a particularly long night shift when I was alone at the hospital. Everyone was asleep and it was dead quiet, and I just had this overwhelming feeling that none of this was real, that everyone else was programmed. I actually poked a sleeping patient to see if they'd react normally, not hard, just a gentle tap. Felt like a complete psycho after, but for those few minutes, I was genuinely terrified that I was trapped in some kind of experiment. The realization that my parents are getting older and won't be around forever hit me like a truck last Christmas when my dad needed help getting up from the couch. He's always been this strong, capable figure in my life, and seeing him struggle with something so simple made me think about what's coming. I actually excused myself to the bathroom and cried. Been calling them way more often since then and planning a big family vacation next year. But that thought still keeps me up some nights. That I might have left the stove on and burned my apartment building down. This one hits me every time I leave for vacation. Was halfway to the airport once and made my Uber driver turn around so I could check. Stove was off. Always is. But my brain won't shut up about it. One time I even called my building manager from another country at 3 a.m. their time to go check my apartment. I've started taking photos of my unplugged appliances before leaving now, which helps a little, but still, the thought is terrifying. What if I suddenly screamed something awful in this quiet place? Had this thought during a funeral, and it paralyzed me with fear that I might actually do it. I was sitting there, everyone was silent, and my brain went, what if you just stood up and yelled obscenities right now? I had to pinch myself hard to focus on something else. Actually bit my cheek so hard it bled just to make sure I stayed quiet. Left as soon as it was socially acceptable. Now I'm anxious about going to any quiet, formal events. That I might be a terrible parent someday. Hit me when I was babysitting my niece and got frustrated when she wouldn't stop crying. I had this flash of understanding how people can snap and hurt kids. To be clear, I would never, but just having that moment of extreme frustration made me terrified of what parenthood might actually be like. I always wanted kids, but now I'm questioning if I have the patience and temperament for it. Been reading parenting books, even though I'm not even in a relationship yet. That perhaps consciousness just ends when we die. Complete nothingness. Had this thought as a kid, actually, maybe around 8 years old, and I had my first existential crisis right there in the middle of a McDonald's play place. Just froze halfway up the climbing structure, thinking about how one day I simply wouldn't exist anymore. My mom thought I was stuck and called for help, but I was just having my first confrontation with mortality. Still think about it sometimes and get that same cold feeling in my chest. That I could just walk away from my entire life and disappear. What's stopping me from emptying my bank account, buying a one-way ticket somewhere, and just starting over? Nobody could physically stop me. This thought hit me after a particularly brutal week at work where everything went wrong. I actually went as far as looking up ticket prices to New Zealand. What scared me wasn't that I could do it, but how appealing it seemed in that moment. Made me realize how thin the line is between normal life and completely upending everything. I sometimes worry that I'm actually mentally ill and everyone around me is just playing along. Had this thought during a work meeting where I made what I thought was a normal comment and everyone got quiet for a second. That tiny pause made me spiral into thinking maybe I'm completely delusional and saying crazy things all the time, but people are too nice to tell me. Spent weeks analyzing every interaction after that. Even asked my wife if I seemed normal to her, which of course made her concerned. Still worries me sometimes. That I might be wasting my one shot at life. Had this thought on my 33rd birthday when I realized a third of my life was probably over already. I made a list of things I always wanted to do and realized I hadn't done a single one. Traveling to Japan, learning to play piano, writing a novel, all still just someday plans. Couldn't sleep for days afterward. Started piano lessons the next week. Still terrifies me though, the idea that I might run out of time before I actually start living the way I want to. That I could just punch someone in the face mid-conversation. To be clear, I'm not a violent person. But sometimes when someone's talking to me, especially if it's my boss, I get this intrusive thought like, what if I just decked them right now? Then I get this wave of horror imagining the consequences. Fired, arrested, ruining relationships. Had this thought during a job interview once, and I was so freaked out by my own brain, I completely bombed the interview. Couldn't focus on anything else. Sometimes I think, what if everyone can actually read my thoughts and they've all collectively agreed to pretend they can't? Had this fear really bad in high school. We'll be sitting in class thinking about my crush and suddenly panic that they could hear everything. Still happens sometimes in meetings when I'm thinking about how boring someone's presentation is. The fear that they all know exactly what I'm thinking makes me flush bright red, which probably makes it look like I'm hiding something, LMAO. That I could just say the absolute worst thing possible in any given situation. Like at my grandmother's funeral, I suddenly thought, what if I laugh right now? And then had to fight the urge to actually laugh because the thought of doing something so inappropriate was making me anxious, which made me want to laugh from nervousness. It was a horrible cycle. Had to pretend I was coughing and step outside. Now whenever I'm in a serious situation, my brain immediately jumps to the worst possible thing I could do there. That I'm going to end up alone. Sounds cliche, but it hit different when my last girlfriend left and took the dog. I was sitting in our empty apartment and realized I'm 37, all my friends are married with kids, and I just failed at another relationship. Had this vivid image of me dying alone in some apartment and no one finding me for weeks. Called my mom sobbing that night. She came over with ice cream like I was a teenager again. Still scares the shit out of me though. What if I'm actually terrible at my job and everyone's just too nice to tell me? This thought hits me every time I make even the smallest mistake at work. Last week I sent an email with a typo and spiraled into thinking my whole career is a lie and I'm about to be fired. I've been at this company 5 years with consistent promotions, but still can't shake the fear that one day they'll all realize I have no idea what I'm doing. My boss gave me a compliment yesterday, and my first thought was, they're just saying that so I don't cry when they fire me. That I might be missing something obvious everyone else sees. Had this thought during a work presentation when I noticed people exchanging glances. Suddenly became convinced there was something on my face or my fly was down the whole time. Checked myself in the bathroom afterward and nothing was wrong, but now I get this paranoia regularly. Like maybe there's a huge life thing everyone understands but me. My therapist says it's related to imposter syndrome, but knowing that doesn't make the feeling less terrifying when it happens.